All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to do a quick sound check to see if we've got everything running smoothly. Let me go ahead and open up this tab here, see what we got going on. I think everything is firing on all cylinders, but yep, there we go. We are good to go. So, welcome, everybody. I wanted to do this stream on a little known activist, at least in these parts of the YouTube land, but very well known in the Los Angeles County. And his name is none other than Eric Preven. And I've actually had the honor of talking and holding an interview with Eric while I attended various city council meetings in my time in LA so far. And for those of you that don't know, Eric Preven is a local legend, and his activism is deeply centered in holding government accountable and calling for transparency for Los Angeles County and Los Angeles City, an area that is so just utterly decimated by government corruption of the highest order. And what people fail to realize is that really, when you take a look at the current rights and the structure and the liberties that people have, particularly in Southern California, like the disclosure of how much the city and the county spends on legal battles when somebody sues them, and disclosing the names of the law firms that they're choosing, and even the list of potential law firms that they're considering to choose, and some of the discussions therein. The city and county actually hold those types of details in what's known as closed session. So, for those that don't know, the difference is that closed session is just that. The city officials and the county officials meet behind closed doors. Those are not recorded, the members of the public are not allowed to go in, and nobody really has any idea on what happens behind closed doors. Really, what I find most interesting about closed session meetings is that, interestingly enough, both by law and in the charter, the only people allowed in the room during closed sessions are the city officials themselves and the city attorney or the county attorneys, depending on if it's a city or county level closed session. The law enforcement officers, so whether it be LAPD or LASD, are actually not allowed to be. Let me see, I'm getting an issue with my stream. Hold on, just really quick. The law enforcement officers are actually not allowed to be in the same room while the closed session meeting is happening. The only people that are allowed to be there, again, are the city staffers, so the city council members, the city attorney deputies, the city attorney themselves, the mayor, county officials like the clerk of the county, or if it's the board of supervisors and the county clerk, and so forth. Those are the only people actually allowed in the room. And the reason for that is because when they're discussing legal matters, the attorney-client privilege only extends to the officials that the lawsuit pertains to, and not law enforcement officers, unless specific officers are a particular material witness to a case. Law enforcement officers themselves do not get extended that attorney-client privilege during those closed sessions, and they're actually supposed to stay outside of those doors. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about open and closed sessions. And I want to go ahead and just give a quick background about not only the activism of Eric Preven, but really tie it into the whole movement that has been the sort of gadflies that people have come to know over at City Council, and why it's important. And you have to understand that this activism of builds on top of one another. Neither of us are strong when we stay alone, but together we are an unstoppable force. And when you take a look at what individually people like Eric Preven, myself, Audit LA, Hermit, Spindler, what we've contributed individually doesn't mean much, but when you take it in whole, it means a heck of a lot. And what I wanted to do is explain just how important the cases that Eric Preven brought forward really tie in and allow the activism that people like myself and Audit LA are doing to be that much more effective. And so, unfortunately, it breaks my heart to have to announce that Eric Preven is no longer with us. He has been reported as uh, uh, passing away just this past Saturday. I just got word of it actually earlier today. I didn't feel like holding off on it because, frankly, a loss of one of the gadflies is just a very it's a big loss for all of us, not just in LA but all across the world, because it is thanks to courageous, strong, and willful people like Eric that we are able to exercise our rights with such liberty and have such knowledge of the city government and the current manner in which the county operates. And so, um, I guess the best, the best that any of us can do at this point is honor Eric's legacy by carrying the torch and moving forward and continuing that good fight of holding government accountable for calling for transparency. Um, I honestly was a complete wreck earlier when I got the news, because it almost seems like yesterday where I got to shake hands and talk with the guy, and now he's no longer with us. And it's just it's heartbreaking. It's deeply saddening, and it's a loss for not just the community here, but a loss for us all. And so my heart is with Eric's family. It's a terrible tragedy, and we have him to thank for the good legacy that he's left behind. And I want to explain some of that legacy in honor of the very valuable work that he's done that many of you might not know about, because when we're in those meetings, it's so easy to lose track of time, and you're just in the zone, and you have your spiel all put together, and you're just trying to get your sentences out of the way before you get cut off illegally for the 50 bajillionth time. And so some of this information, unfortunately, just sort of slips through the cracks. But nevertheless, it's very, very important that you know. And so today I'm going to explain to you some of the two biggest milestones, among many, really, to which Eric has contributed, but the two in particular that Eric is very well known for and that we have to thank. And even stuff that I didn't even know before meeting and getting to know some of his history. And so with that, I'm here to pay respect and honor a fellow gadfly and help explain some of the work that he's contributed in pushing forward the agenda of transparency and accountability in our government. And so the first item that I'm going to talk about, Eric, is his lawsuit that was escalated to all the way to the Supreme Court. And this is tying back to when I was explaining the difference between open and closed session. So, whenever the city is engaged in any sort of litigation against it, so meaning the city is being sued, oftentimes, pretty much every time nowadays, because of how corrupt and deeply embedded the city is with various criminal activity, most of the time the city cannot represent itself because these are violations which criminally also implicate the city. And as such, whether it be a lack of resources, meaning a lack of deputies being able to handle a particular case, or not enough whatever, they have to hire outside counsel to represent the city and or the county, depending on if you're suing the city or the county. That money comes out of public funds. So that money is our taxpayer dollars that's being used to fund the salaries and hourly rates of these private firms that are used to defend the city. It was the case that the county of Los Angeles, right? You have to remember there's the city at the very municipal level. There's the county, which is a grouping of cities. And the county level for Los Angeles, when the county is being sued, they had the audacity to claim that they were not lawfully mandated to release how much money they were spending on this litigation and who they were hiring to do that legal work. And so that was something that Eric took a issue with, ended up suing the county on, and was actually represented by the ACLU. So much so, in fact, all the way to the point that the page I just clicked on here was they took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court did in fact rule in favor of Eric, demanding that the county of Los Angeles has to release all information pertaining to the amount of money it spent and who the lawyers were and the amount of billable hours and so forth on lawyers that it used to represent the county. And the same goes for the city. This is why we have the information on a public record on the agendas, on the websites, and everywhere else, whereby when the city and the county have to hire outside counsel to represent them, we can now see exactly who those law firms are and how much we are paying them to represent us in the cases that they're representing the city and the county on. And it is because of Eric that we have the litigation to support a mandate that the county has to report publicly who it chooses to represent them, how much it's spending, and all of the line items pertaining to that representation. And so that made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so we have Eric Preven to thank for that, a fellow LA community member. But that's not the only thing that Eric is very well known for in his findings. The other piece of activism that he's very well known for is the being kicked out of a public comment period for the Studio City development, whereby he also sued the city. And that's the article that I'm just clicked over here, where during public comment again, a state law in California, which is very unique to California, known as the Brown Act, where you are entitled at every municipal public meeting, including the county, you are entitled to public comment, and each and every one of those meetings has to have a dedicated portion of time dedicated to public comment, where speakers that wish to make their voices heard can speak on agenda items and non-agenda items. Eric was kicked out during a public comment period. He sued and he won. And that is yet another precedent we have where in this situation with Eric's in particular, for when he was kicked out, it was during a special meeting. So special meetings still are no different. The only difference with special meetings, which are still public meetings, but sometimes it might be for agenda items that they might need less than 24 hours notice to actually hold the meeting publicly. Even during special meetings, you are entitled to public comment. And so what happened is Eric was not given time to speak at a special hearing, despite being there, despite registering for a number of years ago, the Studio City development. And so he sued the city, he won, and that was litigated. And so we have a full spectrum now of litigation supporting and strongly defending the Brown Act and the First Amendment at the city and county level, where I talked about on a previous episode the case of David Saltzberg v. City of Los Angeles, where Saltzberg and various other plaintiffs sued the city because they were being routinely kicked out during the city council meetings, specifically because they had the audacity to criticize the government during the public comment period, whereas other people who were not critical of the government were allowed to remain in the meetings and continue on with their public comment uninterrupted. David Saltzberg won that litigation. He was granted attorney's fees to the tune of $2 million, and had a opinion piece, published opinion by the presiding judge that yes, the Brown Act is still is still very much a real law. Yes, the city council did in fact royally f up and violated not only the Brown Act but his First Amendment right. And in the case of Eric, that same opinion extended also during special meetings, really enforcing the spirit and the actual plain language of the Brown Act and the First Amendment, where you cannot interrupt people during their public comment section, and every municipal public meeting has to have a dedicated portion just for public comment in addition to any other agenda items. So we have Eric to thank for that, and those are two of the biggest contributions among many others that he's gifted the city and county of LA. And so for that, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Eric. And the fact that, again, Eric's work builds on top of the work that I'm doing, as well as Audit LA and others are doing. You know, if it wasn't for Herman and Spindler, the fact of the matter is I actually would not even know that the software system that the city council uses to register people for speakers, and how they manipulate those speaker names once they're registered to delete them, I would never have known that system actually existed, and therefore I would never have known exactly what to dig for during my public records inquiries to help expose to you guys the existence of that technology, how it looks like, and how they are actually doing the manipulation of the roster when people try to speak. And so again, this huge foundation that people like Eric, that people like Wayne, that people like Herman have come together over the years to build are now leading to a major accumulation point where what I've been able to do because of their knowledge, because of their activism, because of their commitment, I've been able to add to that layer now on an official permanent public record where we have for undeniable evidence that the city does indeed use a software system to manipulate the roster and queue in which people sign up to give public comment. And because it's a software system, we now also have opened the door officially into further digging in, where we can dig into the time that the city keeps records on those registered names, on what they do when a name gets edited or kicked off of the roster, and all of the various other metadata, which is rightfully so public information to be disclosed and released. Who made the change? Who deleted it? At what time? During what meetings? Those are the kinds of things that, thanks to the work of Eric, thanks to the work of Wayne, thanks to the work of Herman, I've been able to continue their legacy and dig further into it and further show just exactly how the city is manipulating the will of the people, trying to violate their constitutional rights, their First Amendment rights, and the Brown Act. It's not enough to just simply speculate. It's not enough to just say they're corrupt. You have to be willing to do the work and actually definitively show records that prove as such. And this is part of that work. This is the type of work that Eric, that Wayne, that Herman, that Audit LA, and myself are involved in. And I just wanted to put that all in a nice cohesive summary for you guys and pay a major tribute to Eric and thank him for the wonderful contributions he's made. I wish the family, I'm at a loss for words. I know how devastating it can be to lose a loved one. And so my heart is with the family. I wish them all the best. And I hope that you guys are able to get a big takeaway from seeing how all these different intricate pieces of activism interlink with each other and how they all build up from each other. And from that, let's just continue to keep fighting that good fight. And with that said, I'll see you guys on the next one. And here's my hat goes off to you, Eric. Appreciate your work. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.